walk the stage like you should. I did something old for something new. Change your view.
Council hearings. This evening, the applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents are allowed to speak, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The hearing will then be closed and the commission will discuss and vote on the issue after motion. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed. There are no items on there right now, but I believe there will be some that will come on, and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation of the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the commission requests the item be removed from the consent agenda and separately considered under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. To better serve you when possible, please notify us at least 3 business days in advance at area code 515-283-4209 should special accommodations be required. Assistive listening devices are available for the meetings in the council chambers. The Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are also broadcast on cable channel 7 for customers with that service. Where's my secretary?
She's not here.
Ah.
I'm here.
You're it? Well, I would look and I'd say we have a quorum. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Any discussion? Seeing none?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. And there are 2 abstentions. Greg and I, neither one of us were here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and jump to item number 3 quickly. It's a request from East Village Tower Partners, 600 East 5th Street, represented by Jake Christensen, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in 3C, 3B districts to allow conversion of an existing senior living apartments and skilled nursing facility to a mixed-use building with 102 units of multifamily apartments, 44 beds of skilled nursing, and 2,300 square feet of restaurant. I understand there's been a motion to continue that. Is that correct?
Staff has recommended that we continue it. The designer and the developer have been in conversation to go over a few of the things that are administrative kind of standards.
What date?
May 1st.
The date for the next meeting, which would be May 1st.
May 1st. Is there anyone here to speak on that particular item? Seeing none, is there a motion? Greg, move to continue to May 1st. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign, acclamation. Okay, moving on, is there any items we would like to move on to consent?
I'd like to move at least
Number
number 2.
2. Let me read number 2 so people will know whether or not they're here for that item. It's a request from Randy Weigel, 1700 Southeast 15th Court, for vacation of East Granger Avenue from Southeast 15th Street to Southeast 15th Court. Is there anyone here to speak on that item? Okay, seeing none. Move it.
Number 1. Does the applicant have any problem with the staff recommendations on number 1?
Well,
You're good with that? Okay. All right. Anyone else here to speak on number 1? It's a request from the Lee Family Properties, represented by Andy Lee, for a review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 3625 Ingersoll Avenue to allow provision of 12 off-street parking spaces and landscape improvements. The proposed plan would require waiver of a portion of the minimum setback for the perimeter lot and the required parkway planning streetscape along Ingersoll Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Chair, I want to qualify that our recommendation is to not waive that.
Is to not waive that. Okay.
Even though in the original agenda item, the request was it to later.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to say something on that, actually.
Well, if you want to say something, then we're going to go ahead and put it on the agenda, or we can
Just
move
leave
by
it where it
consent.
is. Leave it on discussion.
Okay, that's fine, we'll do that.
Two recommendations.
That's fine, that's fine. So, all those in favor of moving item number 2 to consent, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation again. Okay, and we're going to move the consent. All those in favor of moving the consent, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay, acclamation
Move
again.
that.
Ted.
Ted.
Okay, going on to item number 1. Eric, are you presenting on that one, sir? Thank you.
And item 1 is continued from the previous hearing, April 3rd. I'll go quickly over the geography here. We're talking about the corner of 37th Street and Ingersoll Avenue on the northeast corner of the former gas station site. The developer is, under legal action, is submitting a site plan to develop a site for off-street parking, leaving the existing building on the site, but making improvements in furtherance of the design guidelines for site plans and for the MPC district. They've submitted a plan. Now, I know just as of this afternoon, we had a revised plan. However, we haven't had a chance to review it or make any type of assessment as to where it fits within our recommendation. So I'm going to go over the recommendation based on the original the previously submitted site plan version, and then I'll let the developer applicant speak to what they've done to come into conformance with our recommendations in the staff report. So these are some photos that were just there now. The problem is that people are parking on the site. It's not been paved or developed for off-street parking in most of the areas, and so it's become somewhat of a blight or nuisance as it stands right now. So the developer and owner is proposing to update it so that parking would be permitted. The current layout shows, I believe, 12 spaces, some compacts that are labeled with Cs. Right now, their proposal was two-way circulation. One of the issues is this area along here, and on the west, we require a 5-foot setback from streets. The NPC design guidelines adopt the normal off-street parking standards by reference, so it does become a design guideline which can be waived. However, staff is still recommending that we keep the 5 feet. Sorry, is my mic on? Let me see if I can physically do that, so yeah. Sorry. Hopefully that's better. That way our recording picks us up too. So under the design guideline by reference, 5 feet of setback is required along here, which, because of the dimensions of the property, causes a little bit of a problem because of what we require for dimensions for spaces and maneuvering. Meeting the requirement of the setback would cause a little bit of redesign, either by narrowing the maneuvering and stall dimensions slightly to get it to fit in, or changing to like a one-way circulation and having angled stalls where you could have a narrower aisle. So that's another option. You could narrow this. When you do that, you would be able to narrow this eastern driveway a little bit, and you probably recover another space by narrowing that driveway down to a one-way circulation driveway. So there's some flexibilities here that we know are there when we review this site plan. But the big thing is we want to keep this edge here along the streetscape. In addition, we want to, any site plan that comes through on the Ingersoll corridor here needs to comply with our streetscape design and put those improvements into place in working with our engineering department. we would come up with a schematic, because one of the things that you do have to be concerned with is vision clearance at the intersection here. So the number of planter beds, for instance, we would have to determine where trees could be planted, and then some of the planter beds might have to have just low-level planting. But we would work to develop that schematic for the developer. We want to make sure there's curbing along all these setback areas at the perimeter. Then there's still showing, I think even on the resubmittal we got today, there's still a pole sign shown here, kind of a foreshadowing. There's also an initiative to, that would eventually cause that pole sign to be removed anyway under a proposed ordinance, but right now our recommendation as a condition of this is to have that removed. The other thing is right now this is a no parking area on Ingersoll, so we can't actually, even though NPC allows you to take credit for the on-street parking and they're showing the dimensions properly, we can't actually show those at this point because parking is not permitted in that particular stretch. Now, if they got something changed through our traffic and transportation, conceivably they could bring some or part of those back at some point in the future. The other thing is we want to ensure lighting is at a pedestrian scale, no taller than 20 feet tall, cutoff fixtures. I don't think we have any detail on that right now. There's a couple of existing fixtures shown. We want to make sure that those comply with our pedestrian scale lighting concepts that we normally apply in these situations. Convenience stores would be another example of where we want to see those neighborhood-friendly lighting plans. So those are the conditions right now. There's some language in the initial part of the staff report that talks about timelines. Some of that's based on our legal action, and if you have any specific questions, Sue Donovan with our neighborhood inspection division and our zoning enforcement officer is here to answer any questions about the enforcement process on it.
Any questions? CJ?
I would just like to know, are there any outstanding citations on this property?
You want to talk about that, Sue?
Chair, members of the commission, Sue Ann Donovan, zoning enforcement officer. We did have complaints about illegal parking on this lot, and we did file a civil infraction and have a court order prohibiting illegal parking until it's brought into compliance with the site plan, or it has to be fenced off with appropriate fencing to keep people off of it. They've chosen to go this direction in order to bring the site into compliance for a parking lot. So if they do that, we're fine. If they don't, we'll be pursuing other avenues legally.
Any other questions? Comments?
Is the building just going to stay there, the existing building?
Yeah, they're proposing, on this site plan submittal, they're proposing to retain the existing building. They could reoccupy that with a retail use or another use permitted in the NPC district. That generates a requirement of parking for about 2 or 3 stalls. So there's plenty of spaces provided to meet the use of that building for retail, office, even a small, walk-up restaurant or something like that. So right now, the owner is proposing that. I don't think there's anything in the design guidelines that would be able to compel the removal of that structure. And it does have legal non-conforming rights as a structure.
I have another question. What properties or what businesses is this parking going to serve? And is it going to be for charge parking, or is it going to be free?
I think you'll have to ask the applicant that, if it's going to be for any type of lease, but certainly they would have to provide at least the required parking for the structure on the property, free from lease, if it's going to be something open to the public. And then the MPC district, in its design guidelines, actually encourages the use of shared parking. So the proximity of this to the applicant's property across the street, this could certainly be used as parking in support of those uses as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, Eric, just to clarify, the existing zoning prohibits pole signs. So
Yes.
that is part of the reason why we are recommending that pole sign be removed now that there is a site plan coming in on it. Secondly, on I guess we, as staff, have treated this very similarly to the site plan that was approved for the Ingersoll Dinner Theater just across the street. And it came in a few months ago. So our viewpoint is we want to bring the parking into compliance with code. That already had a non-conforming lot and was being used in violation. This one just doesn't have any paving as being used in violation, so we're wanting it brought up to standards with that streetscape installed along there so that it completes the streetscape in front of us. In the future, if they choose to do renovations of the building, so be it, but we at least want to get the streetscape in and installed along the frontage. And then finally, just keep in mind, I mean, the building is very small on this property, so again, those spaces could be used for the shared parking for the other businesses in the area, just as we talked about on that last site plan. So other than that, I think there would just be the tweaks, again, as Eric had outlined, to the site plan to comply with all of the setback requirements, et cetera. Thank you.
Anything else, Eric?
Yeah, I think I should point out that some of the dimensioning on this plan measures the perimeter setback areas to the sidewalk, and we need to make sure that those are from the property line, the 5 feet. So I just wanted to point that out so the board members or commission members understood that the measurement should be from the property line.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? Please come forward, give us your name and address. Mr. Lee? You want to come forward? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? In favor of the application, please come forward. Give us your name and address.
Sure. Colleen Kinney, north of Graham, Mr. Chair and Commission. I have some letters here to submit. Can I please ask them to be
Yes, we
received
would.
and filed, please?
Address to Colleen.
Oh, sorry, 632 40th Street, Des Moines 50302.
Is that enough? I'll give you the rest of these.
I think I have 17.
We're going to ask that one of the copies, Eric, be received and filed. Thank you.
The first one is from the North of Graham Board. The second one is from a property owner to the north, Ken Logan, who was unable to come and asked me to submit it for him. It's also been submitted electronically. I'll first go over the North of Grand letter. We've reviewed the site plan, this one here that Eric presented, and we also had a meeting April 2nd. About 20 individuals attended, and last night we also held another board meeting to talk about the request. We agree to support the staff recommendation to approve the site plan based on the 7 conditions described in the staff report from April 16th, only if the site plan is contingent on specific completion date, no new liquor license, occupancy permits be considered until the approved site plan improvements are completed. Mr. Lindy had also mentioned that this applicant had come before as part of the 3701 and 3711 site plan review, and we echo the comments from that previous meeting as well. There's a quote from our previous letter. Numerous infractions, unfulfilled agreements have been associated with these properties over the years. The neighborhood believes past behavior is a reasonable indicator of future behavior. And I'll let you go on to read, but I wanted to emphasize that, please.
We've got a copy of it.
Sure. For Mr. Logan's letter, he also had some photos. I don't know, can I just set these here, please?
Yep, go ahead and set them down right there.
They're close-ups of the structure that he wanted to just make sure were understood. This is the footings that are near the fence there. This is measuring tape out. And here is another one. We just wanted the commission to be aware of the current state of the fence there to the north of the applicant's property. I can give this to you after. And then the structure, there are concerns about this kind of ground to roof crack there that is from afar, and this is from close up. And just there's concerns about the structural integrity of the building that, we just wanted to note. And then also, from a earlier time, the RDG folks had presented this, maybe you would work on this, Mr. Irvine. This is the segment of the Ingersoll plan that I wanted to just present as, at one point, someone had suggested this is a pocket park, this location. So I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions? Christine, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question for you.
Yes.
So, it looks from your letter, just to make sure I'm clear, you're just requesting just some considerations?
We're supporting the conditions that the staff is recommending.
Okay.
And then there were some parts that we just wanted some more information about, like Mr. Lindy had said about the measuring of the 5-foot line, just to try to make sure we're all on the same page that we're measuring that setback. That was one example.
Is that the only item you're requesting more information from?
And also about the fence and the structural integrity of the building.
Okay.
I'm not an inspector, but it could be something that we could use some more information about, that it's safe there. Let me just look at my additional comments real quickly here. The area that is to the west here, if folks are going to be going between the two properties that Mr. Lee owns, let's say they park over here and then they're headed over to, like, this had been a tavern before, we just are concerned about pedestrian access there. If it's well lit, that there's safe access there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Ted?
Can you say that one too?
Cully. I'm sorry, you called me Mr. Irvine, I'll call you Miss Kinney. The last question you had relative to the pedestrian safety, the site plan that's been approved for the theater building and the Manhattan Deli and the Greenwood building, do you feel like that addresses the questions when that site plan that's already previously been approved, if that's in place, are you good with that in conjunction with the site plan for this as well?
Because the applicant also owns the property that is to the north here, I didn't quite get it. There have been concerns about the alley there.
Yeah.
I think it addressed that, but I don't know if it really specifically talked about the part to the east. He hadn't come before.
Right.
So I guess if maybe a shared parking plan could be shared, that could be a suggestion. Because he owns this property over here to the northwest, right? And then this area.
But I guess my question is, if the site plan that's been approved is implemented on the theater property, does that address what you think would be pedestrian safety?
It does if people are using Medco, I guess. At the time, I don't think that the part to the east had been
Okay.
addressed.
All right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Chair?
Get up and say.
Yeah, I was going to say there's some comments that were made that you might want to rebut.
That's exactly right.
explain who made the changes?
Lady and gentlemen, see, my name is Andrew Lee, and Lee Family LLC, and we own, see, the gas, used to be the gas station, the parking lot, right there, you see. But we like to do something looks nice for the North Grand Association. I think they will be like, it will be looks nice, you see, we are going to put the new parking. And we figure it is the parking, see. My architect, Tom, he drove the 15, the 3 years closest street. If it's too closest street, we just raised just 12. We build new parking 12. It's really good for the Ingersoll. See, the street looks nice. And we have several people, they want us, you see, to cooperate together, build a new building, the front side. But the present time, you see, I don't think so. It's just parking only. And the side plan, you see, that Tom did seemed to me pretty good, you see, the 12. If your gentleman, a lady and gentleman agree, see, we build the 15. If not, we keep the 12, you see.
Anything else, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, that's how.
Questions?
Do you have a new site plan that you want to show us?
Yeah, site plan right here.
Can you help him maybe roll that out? Oh, is it the same one?
That's the same one.
Is there a new one?
There is a new one. It was given to the city executive. It addresses just about all these questions.
Would you like to approach and present it?
I'd like to explain it. There is I received.
You would need to approach.
Jeez, we just got it this afternoon. 3 o'clock.
All right.
Where we at here? Okay, I received 2 letters from staff that gave 2 different suggestions on how to deal with the parking. There's not quite enough. One said that we could ask that we just leave it the way it was first submitted and get it approved, and that was not approved. But I went ahead and changed it because the other one said that we could have a 2-foot overhang over the 5-foot setback with the vehicle, which would mean that we're down to a 15-foot parking length. And then that makes the distance between the parking, instead of 24 foot as required, it makes it 23 foot. This would be favorable because this gives us 12 cars. Now, this is related, as has been stated earlier, with the project across 37th Street, 3701. 3701, after the last meeting, we were down to 32 cars, and 46 cars are required, according to the NBC guidelines. This has a small building here that's a M-use, it's the former gas station. The owner wants to keep it here. It's unused at this point. So 1, maybe 2 cars, let's say 2 cars would satisfy the requirement for this building. That gives us 8 more spaces to be shared across the street. So if I need a 46 and 2, so I need a total of 48 parking spots on both sides. We'd be supplying 12 and 32, so we'd be supplying 44. Now, there is some talk about having parking off-site that's controlled with cameras, lighting, and stuff like this. I think it would be within this board's power to approve this parking with this and on the other side is sufficient.
We understand that's not what we're here for. We're just here for this particular spot, right?
Well, yeah, but there was some talk why, you know.
And I understand that, but that would be something you'd have to come back before the board.
So what I've done is, on the other item, if I can find it, that recommended a 2-foot overhang for the vehicle and a 15-foot depth here and a 23-foot depth here. That gives us 12 cars. And the reason we want to get as many cars here as we can is because of the situation across the street.
Any questions? Before Mike. Any other questions? Greg?
Are you addressing the staff comment about the Ingersoll streetscape?
Haven't done that yet.
What is your intention?
Well, it's up to the owner. My intention is to do as I'm told. I did receive some information last time we had a meeting. No one had really given a price for it. There's a lot of information since that part was done down on between 28th and 31st. And just the cost, projected cost for this little strip of parking here is about $60,000 to $70,000. It's a very pricey improvement regimen. And it would be nice if some way was developed by the city to aid landowners in paying for this. Because it is, I mean, the whole value of this site right now, and it is pretty decrepit, is less than the improvements just for here. And then we've got the rest of these improvements.
Any other questions? Mike, just something.
You referenced there were 2 letters. What are the dates on those letters?
Okay, let me find.
I assume one is from the past meeting and the one is the staff rec we mailed last Friday.
Okay.
One of them is dated March 26th.
One is dated
Look at the footer on the next page.
April 3rd.
For the April 3rd hearing.
Yeah.
The April 3rd
So the
hearing.
first one was the staff rec that we mailed 2 weeks ago. There were interim meetings and reviews that occurred. So the revised staff rec that you received.
One is signed by Phil Delafield, and it's dated
That's the administrative review.
March 21st.
So in the staff report for this meeting, it references condition 1 and means compliance with all of these requirements. And that would be the same comments as if it never came to the board or the commission. Any administratively reviewed site plan gets a letter like this.
Okay, so the mention about the possibility of getting it approved,
The commission would
that
have
was
to do
just.
that. Yeah, the commission has to do that.
They haven't done that. So it's really 2 different things.
Yeah, so the one I would go from is the one dated for the April 7th.
Okay, well, that's the one that makes a suggestion of the 2-foot overhang, the 15-foot parking depth, and then the 1 foot taken out of the, which is different. For the original one was to have the parking remain the same and take the difference out of the 5-foot setback, which was not approved.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
CJ, do
You have 3
oh,
copies,
but-
signed and
sorry.
sealed. That's not
So you
a,
can take that.
yeah, that's not a sealed.
CJ, do you have a question? Yeah.
I would still like to have my question answered, and I don't know if you're the one that can do it. I understand the need is great for shared parking on Ingersoll, and is the intent of this parking to be shared, or is the intent to be leased? Because that's an entirely different,
I think the owner at this
Use
point
purpose.
wants to use this parking as part of the parking across the street. It would be part of that parking. It's not to be leased, it's just part of, it's like, that was already in his parking lot that's behind the neighboring building.
so it would be shared parking.
It would be
you're
shared
saying.
parking.
Okay.
And there's really, we've looked at other things to do with this. This is a tiny site. There's not a lot you can do to it, and it just won't.
And does the owner, do you know, does the owner agree to all the staff recommendations? Did I hear you say that?
I think he said that earlier.
Did he? Okay, thank you.
Mike, did you have a question?
No, it's just, again, to clarify, this is a standalone site plan. So the question about shared parking and whether 44 spaces is acceptable less than 48 would be an amendment to the site plan that was approved several months ago, and that has not been submitted. So
Okay,
he will still have to comply with all of the conditions of the previous site plan, and then also all of the conditions that are on this particular site plan in front of the commission tonight.
so in light of this, though, we could revisit the 3701 parking situation, which this is.
I think you could, but I'm just telling you, we were pretty firm the last time the site plan came through about it meeting the minimum parking requirements. And so, I guess there's nothing saying you can't submit it, but I'm just giving you a heads up that staff was
So
pretty
the-
firm on meeting that the last time, so.
The city would prefer the EDCO solution where they go across the alley and the lighting and the cameras and.
We would prefer they comply with the parking regulations for the city, however he chooses to do that.
Okay, but isn't this another way to do that?
It would still be short of parking requirements by the city.
I see. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? You have a motion? Good. Greg, move staff, okay. Any discussion?
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
The measurements from the property line versus the sidewalk, that all gets to get looked at before.
Well, I guess what's been presented in front of you is another alternative from what our recommendation points towards, which is doing some slight reduction of the maneuvering area in order to meet the setback area. And you can go with a reduced size depth of the stall on the paved portion. It's still a 17-foot stall.
So,
Yeah.
we have a motion for the staff recommendation in front of us,
That's correct.
so we're not really considering it.
We've not reviewed this site
Yeah,
plan.
we haven't
so I
had a
would
chance to
stick
review
with
it,
staff.
so I can't sit here and say whether we would support that, but you could modify your motion at this point.
It's not my
Greg?
motion, and I'm not interested in modifying it.
I don't think we know enough to modify our motion at this point, so I think we need to leave it alone. Whether or not staff can look at it and see how it meets the ordinance, that's probably what we have to do.
Well, I can tell you one thing is the 23 would have to be waived by the commission, down from the 24 at a minimum. So, and there may be other things that we have to look at setback wise.
Okay.
It seems like a totally different item to me, so.
Jack, do you have something?
Well, I did, but I don't want to polish this thing up, but it occurs to me that the building isn't worth a lot, and I'm not changing anything here, but Eric, if we took out the building, how many parking spots could one figuratively stick in that spot?
Well, I don't know the exact width, but it would be at least two.
I'm just using binder foot, two, like maybe you could get 3 binder foot.
You gotta be careful because there's a drive entrance there too, and you gotta be careful where your maneuvering goes, but without an actual
If they
design.
want to remove that building in the future and add parking, would it be a
Come
site
back
plan
with a site
amendment?
plan, yes.
And that's just a trial balloon for this overall 48 space requirement or whatever it was you were talking about. And I am otherwise not trying to amend anything that is offered as a motion at this point in time.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, all those?
Joanne?
Oh, Joanne, I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if it's necessary for us to go ahead and vote on this when there is another plan that you haven't really looked at yet that applies to this.
I guess that's up to the commission if they want to see us consider that revised plan or go with the recommendation.
Joanne, I'm going to suggest, we've been back here twice.
Yeah.
I think we just go forward with it. If they need to make some adjustments, I think staff can do that for us. Anything else? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Christine's the only one in opposition. Everybody else is Christine. Okay.
What was that vote again?
10-1.
It passed, 10-1.
Staff recommendation
Or not.
was approved 10-1.
Moving on to item number 4. No, 3 was already moved into continuance. 2 was already consent. 2 was consent, 3 was moved to continuance. So we're at the 4.
Yeah, Christensen Development.
It's a request from Christensen Development, represented by Jake Christensen, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines and C3B districts on property located at 505 East Grand Avenue to allow a two-story, 10,568 square foot mixed office retail building. The subject property is owned by the city of Des Moines. Eric, you're presenting on this one, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Let me get my other items here. You can bear with me for a second. We had problems with the printer. If you desperately need photos of this site, I have photos on my phone, and our printer started to go, color printer started to go haywire today, so I apologize for that. This is the aerial of the area. It is the city-owned lot here at the southeast corner of the intersection of East Grand and East 5th Street, just north of the half block that has the Teach Out building, the Hoburger building. I don't know the name of this little building, but has the bakery in it, just immediately to the south of the alley. The proposal here is to do a two-story, but with the upper story being kind of an expanded height with a mezzanine level within it. Used for mixed office and retail commercial use. And I'll let the designer really sell their project. I think they're here. But I'll go over it quickly. Basically, this is the surface lot that's here now. This would go away for the most part, other than leaving some surface lot area to the southeast corner of the project. This would be a little green space, otherwise the rest of it is footprint to the lot line. The elevations actually conceive of overhanging the right-of-way here, so you can see a dash line. On this west side, it would overhang into the right-of-way. That will require another vacation request that would come in front of you in the near future. I think we would want to make sure any approval tonight would be contingent upon getting any air rights vacated necessary. There's some possibility in working with, not knowing what the exact soils situation is below grade. They would also have to request a small portion of subsurface rights for expanded footings into the right-of-way. That isn't necessarily determined yet, but there's a possibility of that. So that would all, depending on the amount of that encroachment, that would also possibly come in front of the Plan and Zoning Commission for vacation as well. So just a couple of things. Because of the overhang, the streetscape here, they aren't proposing street trees in these two planters, just because of the ability to maintain them and that they would grow into the building and they would be a problem for a pedestrian traffic flow. So at this point, they're proposing not to put trees in these two planters. They would still construct the planters and they would be there. This would be a green space with tree plantings as well. There would be access from all points at grade around the street side of the site, but there would also be a rear access and then access up to an upper level because the slope of the site actually drops as it goes south, so the height from grade to top of building actually gets a little higher as you go to the south.
Eric, is staff all right with losing those two trees in light of the three trees that are back there?
I think that we didn't have any resistance from our arborists, so at this point I think we're going to go with that unless there's somebody that has other opinions on the commission, but at this point in time I think we're getting that there's no open space requirement, so we're actually gaining an additional tree over here in the open space area. So net number of trees.
Well, and the other thing
coming
is
out ahead.
survivability of the tree if we put them in the other place, right?
Yeah, some of it comes down to that, just what we know, and the arborist knows about the ability for that tree to thrive in that environment. So right now, I think we're not recommending that those be put back in as trees. So I'm going to give you a quick glance at the elevations here. These should have been in your packet as well. And I'll let the designer again speak to the project. But from the north elevation, you can see that cantilevered upper level that would go out over the right-of-way. Right now, I mean, we're looking at that meets the clearances that we need. We haven't had any issues expressed to us from traffic about things like signals or anything like that. So at this point in time, that's not an issue, but we will have more in-depth look into that at the point of the time of reviewing the vacation. So.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
I just wanted to go over the conditions that we're recommending here quickly. And most of them pertain to the downtown overlay. Compliance with all the administrative review requirements of the permit center, the vacation of the air rights, and I'll put an addendum to that, subsurface rights if necessary. Water quality detention or other low-impact design, I should say. In the downtown overlay district, it speaks to having some stormwater management, which is in furtherance of water quality. I don't want that to be equated to a certain standard that we have on larger projects. All it really means is that they need to do something of a low-impact nature which will improve water quality for the stormwater runoff. Provision of bike racks in the adjoining sidewalk area and within the rear of the building, and then the provision of black archetype light fixture replacements within the streetscape right away. Now I'm ready for questions.
Any questions? Is the applicant present? Could they please come forward?
Yes, they are.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you, Greg?
Is this went through the East Village board, or do you know? Been presented to them?
We did get a communication on this when it went to the Urban Design Review Board.
Okay, great.
So we didn't get it specific to this site plan.
Please give us your name and address.
Chairman of the Commission, Laura Sendag, 320 Southwest 7th, Des Moines. I'm with Envision Architecture, speaking on this project. This is this same site plan, just in color. Mr. Lundy did a good job of describing the project, but it's located on East 5th and East Grand, two-story project. This is the same site plan. As you can see, we have one-way access from East 5th, 12 spots behind the site for second floor tenants and the pocket park, as he spoke to. There were comments about stormwater management. We're looking at adding detention along here and pulling these parking spots in. We're well over the 24 feet required between these parking spots, so we're looking at pulling these spots in and addressing that comment from the city by adding detention on the site. This is a 3D rendering. The material palette of the building is brick, brick, metal panel, and glass storefront, all within the East Village requirements. Any questions?
Any questions? I don't think so. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just address Mr. Waday's comment? Jay Christensen, 506 3rd Street, Suite 300, Des Moines. Thank you for your time. I would, if I could submit for the record, a letter of support from the East Village. We've met with 13 members of the East Village, including the review committee, and then as a result of that, a letter of support from the East Village.
We're going to ask that that be received and filed. Okay.
Other than that, I don't have anything else unless there's a question.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? In favor of the application, please come forward. I'm going to open the public hearing. Please give us your name and address.
Bill Van Orsdale, office and developer of the studio block at 506 through 526 East Grand, resident at 424 and a half East Grand, and part of the ownership of that building also. I'm not for or against necessarily. I have some questions of clarification. I'm concerned about the aesthetics of the site, safety, parking, and the pedestrian connections or the opportunities for same. Parking, we've just wiped out a sizable number of parking spots with this, and I'd like to see consideration given on the south side of Grand from the 5th Street to 6th Street angled parking. You could increase the number of parking spots substantially there. Grand is wide enough to handle it, and I'd like to see some consideration for that. I'd like to see some consideration for the 2 trees you've just agreed to remove for planters, that we would have some sort of planters where those trees were of some style that, you know, would compensate the aesthetics of the site. The safety concern is the alley. I'm an advocate of green alleys, working on the green alley between 4th and 5th on the north side of the, or that would be the north side of the buildings on Locust. Very similar situation. That alley connects from 4th to 6th, and in that alley from 5th to 6th, there's a dumpster that sits behind the teach-out building. I would like to see some consideration for moving that dumpster into the dumpster enclosement that's behind the proposed building to get it out of the alley. I'd like to have some consideration, and I'd like to see what kind of thoughts there are on lighting in the alley. We have a safety concern down there at night, and I'd like to see some sort of consideration given for the lighting. And the lighting would probably have to be put on the proposed building because it abuts right up to the alley itself. And so it becomes a question of who's going to be responsible for the lighting if, in fact, you give it some consideration. So those are my thoughts. The building itself, I think if we can solve some of these things, is an addition, a continued momentum in the East Village that we all see and enjoy. But hopefully you'll give some of my comments some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, any questions? Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the application? In favor of the application, please come forward. Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? In opposition to the application? Likewise, seeing none, do you need any rebuttal time?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we too are actually very concerned about not only the safety but the pedestrian connection of this building and the retailers to the rest of the neighborhood. So we had a meeting with Mike Berry and Jennifer Bohack from City Traffic and Planning. There's a study currently going on for Grand Avenue as it relates to the bridges. And then as to overall parking and pedestrian and vehicular flow within the East Village and Grand Avenue specifically. So what you will see come before you, the reason we do not have it on our site plan is that work is not yet completed, but you will see they're trying to decide, frankly, between bump outs, whether a pair of them would go north-south between where Seed used to be in the corner of our building, or if they would go east-west in a way to allow pedestrians to be able to cross one of those two places in a more convenient and safe manner. As for the alley, I actually support Mr. Van Orsdale's comments in terms of making the alley a better place. My personal belief, however, is that the infill of the vacant parking lots in the East Village will encourage more people to walk on the sidewalk as opposed to cutting through the alley. When we have active uses at the street that are interesting to walk next to, it's much more enjoyable than the alley, and people will predominantly choose that. But anything that this board would like us to do in relation to our building and the alley, we are certainly open to.
Thank you. Questions? Greg?
To his question of lighting, do you have any proposed lighting along the backside of your building that would help light the alley?
We haven't gotten that far, but I'm not opposed to it. We haven't done a photometric study of our site plan that I've seen yet. But
From my point of view, I guess it's a good idea, so I guess I'd just encourage you if you can.
Yeah, and I would accept that if that was a condition of approval.
Christine?
Would you be willing to consider the addition of the planters or something that'd be compatible that he mentioned with regard to the trees?
For the alley or for the site?
The site.
Those where the two trees would be.
We're
For
open to
incorporating.
certainly planning's there. One other thing I would like to clarify, and this was in our defense, this came up today in a dialogue with city staff. To Laura's comment that we have excess space for circulation between the parking, we're actually going to cut these parking, we're going to take half of that space, and that will be green space all along what is western edge of Oriental Grocery. And so we have opportunity for plantings there. I also think that if there's a beautification effort to the east-west portion of the alley, that the way we set up the building with active uses right to the corner of the alley and with bringing green all the way down, we're actually pulling dumpsters off of the alley itself. We actually have photographs of the alley now that Mr. Van Orsdale is correct. There are dumpsters strewn all about. And so we feel like we've tried to take into account the future potential for the alley.
Any other questions, CJ?
I also would like to comment on the alleys and the lighting. Human nature being what it is, I think lighting should be a priority for you, because human nature will take shortcuts and they will go through the alley, whether there's a dumpster or whatever. So to provide safety and enhance the area, I think that would be a good idea to consider that. And I really don't agree with the municipal arborist in waiving those trees. Research shows that in business districts, especially retail, that shoppers stay longer and spend more where the streets are lined with trees. So I would highly encourage you to do that.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none? Oh, Greg.
Just a couple. I do see that you have the planters where trees would be. Myself, I would be open to nicely designed and, created planters as opposed to trees. I think those can be equally pleasing. The second question I had was, I'm assuming you guys solved I never quite understood who owned it, but the dock that is on the west side, so somehow that all got worked out and
I can answer that. The city of Des Moines owns that property, as well as has leased the rights to use that dock for at least 9 years, I believe. That lease was terminated, I believe, last month.
Okay.
I've actually been in 3 or 4 meetings with Sun, the owner of Oriental Grocery, and working through the coordination of her deliveries. And, in an ideal world, nothing changes in some people's minds. So certainly, she was disappointed at first, so I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it was all smiles and hugs, but I would tell you I've met with her 4 times as recently as last Friday, and she is moving on, and we volunteered it's actually her obligation to pay for the demolition of that, and we have volunteered to assist in that, and so I think to the extent possible, we have a good relationship with them, and she's moved on.
Any other questions?
I guess the only other thought was addressing Mr. Van Orsdale's dumpster point. I thoroughly understand the concern with the additional dumpsters. I don't know that it makes sense to make that a burden on this particular project. I mean, it's a teach-out dumpster or whatever, so I'm not sure how to solve that, but I guess my point would be is I don't know that this project should be solving that. Maybe that's something that is more of a city question or issue, Mike, or something that gets taken up in a different way. I don't.
Anything else?
Well, on the dumpster, I think that, our preference clearly would be to have it in an enclosed situation, not just sitting out in the alley. Obviously, the teach-out building was renovated under a different standard than we have currently. If it were done today, it would have to be either in the building or in an enclosure. I'm looking at the space there. I don't know how much room or flexibility there is there to work with the owner of the teach-out building to maybe share in the cost of a larger enclosure and put all the dumpsters in that. But, that would be up to the commission to look at and the developer to speak to it. Looks like it's really right on the end of that. I didn't know with that new green space that you're proposing on the west side, if there was any opportunity to maybe put the dumpster in that location, maybe have a little larger. I know that's your stormwater detention also, so.
In part. I would also say that the property owner to the south has land between the alley and the northern edge of their building, where I would be more open to that if they were property line to property line.
But being that they have the room,
Right.
at this point, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion? Ted, move staff.
I'd like to move staff with the addition of a sixth, that a appropriate lighting study be done.
Okay.
Do you know anything about the planters where the trees would be?
I think that's addressed with the site plan, as I saw.
Yeah, Jake, you were proposing plantings in the planters that are there, shown on the site plan, so they'll maintain those with plantings. If you want to make it a condition, it would just be reinforcing what they're proposing to do. I didn't know if Greg was speaking to like something above ground?
No.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
I'd like to make an additional amendment to reconsider the street trees, because when we're talking about stormwater, water quality, trees also add to that value of a property and for the total tree canopy in the city. So I would like to entertain that also in the motion. Thank you.
Up to you, Ted.
Is this a net gain in trees on the site?
They're providing 4 additional trees.
3.
That wouldn't be required at all, other than they're trying to further the downtown overlay. So they're actually gaining 2 trees that they wouldn't have if they'd just done the parking lot perimeter, or parkway plantings that were required under the Des Moines landscaping standards. So there is a net gain in 2 trees based on what they're showing for the site plan as it's proposed right now.
CJ, are you good with that? They're adding trees that aren't required?
No, I think the streetscape, we do require that for other businesses, and to waive it, I think we set a precedent, and I also believe that they add to the value of the retail shopping district. I mean, research has proved that, and to put a tree in a different location doesn't necessarily increase the value of the businesses or the business that these people have invested in. And these are local people who are unique to the area, and I think we should support them as much as we can.
It's up to you, Ted. We'll take it up as a motion if we need to.
I'm good with my motion as is.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and, you're putting that in the form of a motion, right, CJ?
That was a friendly amendment.
Well, but it would be a motion, to be an amendment to the.
She made the motion, Ted
Refused
declined
it.
it, so it's.
So it's an amendment, a request for an amendment.
No, it wasn't accepted.
He's not accepting it. That's the point.
So it's a motion on his.
The question is whether or not she's making a motion to amend his motion. The amendment precedes the motion.
He's throwing it to a vote to see if the whole commission.
Get a vote to see if her amendment is going to be attached to the motion. Should I get my Roberts?
I think it was a request for a friendly amendment to the motion.
And it was refused. So the question to CJ is that a motion for an amendment? Amendment, that's what, and is that an amendment? That's my question. Yes.
I understand there's a motion before the commission, and so the vote can take place on a commission. If that motion fails, then another motion can be considered.
Amendments precede a motion. So her amendment would precede, and then it would be attached to the motion, his motion. That's the way it works. Take my word for it.
Word for it or what? I'm sorry.
That her amendment would then be voted upon as to whether or not the amendment will be attached to the motion.
Okay, well, Mike, I'll ask you, are there specific plans and commission rules for that? Or is it?
No,
like
we
city council versus-
don't officially follow Robert's rules. In the past, it's been, the motion is not, if the friendly amendment is not accepted by the person that made the motion, the first motion on the table is voted on.
And then he has an opportunity to make a motion later. Is that correct?
If it would help, my amendment was to consider it, not to require it. I mean,
Okay, so the question
up to staff.
is that, are you asking for an amendment? Okay. I don't care how we take it up. I think the amendment should precede the motion, but if you guys want to take the motion up first and then we attach the amendment afterwards, I think the reason why the amendment precedes the motion is because then, once the amendment's attached to the motion, you may or may not want to vote for it with the amendment on there.
Exactly. But can I ask a question of the applicant?
You can.
Would you be willing to talk with staff about reconsidering a couple of trees in the bed area and come up with a solution that, and I don't know why you don't want them there, maybe it's because they're blocking signage or something, but would you consider talking with staff about that?
I'm not opposed to answer Ted's question, I'm not opposed to considering the trees there. I agree with the board member's comments about street trees. In this particular instance, we have tried to go above and beyond the standard for trees on the site in exchange for a unique component of the building that we are trying to deliver at that corner for the projection where we hang out over the right-of-way at a height above 12 feet. That office space is...
So your cantilever...
It's impacting that. So I am 100% able to commit to you to sit down and talk to them about that. But as a design team, we've talked through the challenges and the survivability of that because of that particular element we were trying to deliver. So absolutely look at it.
Great.
If I may. I think the difficulty is the approved list of street trees that the city has are all what I would consider in the overstory tree range. They're all relatively bigger trees because they're in a normal situation. That's how they would grow. I think in this case, you might find a smaller tree that would fit in there and grow, but it's not allowed in the city ordinance. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They might find one, but it's not allowed.
I'm recommending, CJ, I would recommend a administrative approval or a solution on the tree that will live in the cantilever situation, and the applicant sounds like he's okay with that. Are you okay with that as a...
I'm okay with that, and there is street trees approved that are for under power lines, so there are some varieties on the list, and if staff could negotiate that and the builder, that's fine. I'm just asking for consideration.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so do you have that language?
We're good.
For the-
You got it, Mike?
So that'd be
You agree to that,
number
then?
7?
You agree to that?
So I agree to that.
Okay.
Look at me being
Okay.
conciliatory.
Any other discussion? Well spoken by a lawyer. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation, it passes. Thank you. Last thing, director's report.
Just briefly, on Monday morning, council will be having a workshop, and we actually have 3 items on there from community development. One is the Capitol Crossroads neighborhood component, the inner ring neighborhood component will be presented to the council. Second item will be the tomorrow plan. They're asking for a resolution of support for that from the council on Monday night, so there's a presentation by the MPO on that. And then finally, the council asked for a recap again of the proposed changes for the electronic signs and for the pole sign, I guess prohibition, if you want to call it that. Those are our citywide ordinances that are being considered. You probably got several emails from me today or from the system today about public information meeting next Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Apologize for the glitches in our technology. I was really happy my name was on all of those.
I'll take full credit for that, and then, and I admit to putting Mike's name on them.
So anyway, 6 to 8 p.m. next Thursday. I do understand that does conflict with a Des Moines Neighbors meeting. It was the only night the council chambers were available next week. So if you care to attend, you're welcome to. The council workshop will pretty much have the same presentation. We will have the draft ordinances available for distribution on Monday morning at the council workshop, and if you want those early, I can email those out to you. It will be a public hearing on the 1st of May, so 2 weeks from tonight, you'll be holding a public hearing on both of those ordinance amendments. So that's it.
So will the next week be televised like we are?
The public information meeting?
Right.
No.
Okay. How about on the website?
No.
Greg, anything? Okay. I want to thank those who have filled in for me while I've been out injured.
It's big time.
And I realize I owe, but truthfully,
Marathon meeting.
yeah, truthfully, I will say that I think it's a good thing that other people have an opportunity to sit in this chair, and I've taken some comments about that very issue, and from all my scouting experiences, I've learned that my sole responsibility here is to replace myself. And I'm going to, quite frankly, be moving towards that vehemently this year. So we need to have people who can fill in, and I thank Jackie for doing it and Greg for doing it. And I guess that's about all I have. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Walk the city block in these shoes. Gray sky turn blue. Change your view. Well, I can change your view. And I walk the city block in these shoes. I something old for something